Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And it's right at 1 o'clock. I'm in Minnesota, so 2 o'clock Eastern or 11 Pacific for you. But wanted to go ahead and start and welcome everyone to today's session, the SAP Evolution from On-premise to the SuccessFactors in the cloud. And my name is Sarah Enders. I'm on the marketing team here at EPI-USE Labs, and I will be the moderator today. Thank you all for joining us, and just wanted to let you know that a recorded version of this webinar will be available to you and also posted on the website. So I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Danielle Larocca. She is the Senior Vice President of HCM Solutions here at EPI-USE Labs. Danielle is also an SAP mentor and a best-selling author with over 20 years of experience in the field. Just wanted to do a mention for her too. If you'll be attending the Sapphire and ASUG show next week in Orlando, Danielle also will be speaking there on reporting options for SAP SuccessFactors Solutions, and that's next Wednesday. So now I will go ahead and hand it over to you, Danielle.
Thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon, and thanks everybody for joining the webinar. I'm excited to see that we have attendees joining us from all over the world. This webinar is going to be interactive. You have the opportunity to ask questions or give feedback at any time via the GoToWebinar questions box on your screen, as shown here. We'll be checking in regularly to collect as many questions as possible to answer at the end. Any that we don't have time to respond to during the live webinar, we will respond to via email. In addition, posting questions, you can also go to GoToWebinar screen, or you can do so via Twitter using our hashtag #LabsWebinar. We encourage you to ask questions on Twitter using this hashtag. You can then connect and chat with us and other fellow attendees throughout the webinar and afterwards. All attendees are going to receive a copy of the presentation and a link to play it back within 24 hours. We also want you to be able to engage with other attendees to understand where they might be at in their journey, so there'll be an opportunity for you to share input via live polls. To give you an idea how they work, in a moment you'll see your screen change and there'll be a question for you. There we go. It's not a hard question, but rather it's asking you about the weather wherever you are in the world today. Please take a moment and select your answer. I'm currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's a beautiful 85 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. Thanks to all for participating. Let's take a look and see if we could share these results. So most of the people saying it is hot, 12% haven't left the house yet. Okay, so now you know how the interactive polls work. I'm going to return to the presentation and let's dive right in. It continues to be a pretty exciting time to be in the SAP HCM world. I've had the pleasure of working in SAP since 1995, when my employer decided they wanted to replace their legacy payroll system, which they thought would stop working in the year Y2K. Back in those days, the payroll system was really the only automated technology in use for HR functions. Back then, it was really more about having a huge file room with a folder for each employee that stored all their relevant information. In those pre-high-tech days, HR was really reactive to what was happening with employees, with a focus on keeping track of events like hirings and terminations, performance reviews, etc., after they happened. Essentially, HR was seen as an administrative back-office function and not as a real strategic driver for the organization's future profitability. Those days are long gone, and now HR is seen as an integral part of the business, a truly strategic player, which requires a great deal of planning and strategizing for the future to ensure that an organization can grow and sustain that growth over time. It's been interesting to be an observer all these years, seeing how SAP has evolved with this shift in thinking from HR being that back office function to how now it's really got a seat at the chief officer table to plan for the future of the organization. Today's webinar is about how the SAP SuccessFactors technology has evolved, the evolution from on-premise to the cloud, including a general overview of the two systems and their methodologies. So SAP HR has been around for over 30 years, It was launched back in 1986, and it has continued to adapt to the marketplace ever since. 2001 brought the advent of the self-service applications, giving the employees and the managers the opportunity to initiate and perform transactions themselves, reducing the burden on the HR staff, freeing them up to focus on more exciting initiatives. Around 2011, there was a bit of a paradigm shift to an approach that really perceived the people as assets or human capital, whose current value could be measured and whose future value could be enhanced through an investment like any other asset in the business. As HR began to play a more critical role in the organization, the nomenclature evolved, and we've begun speaking of HR in two distinct categories. We call them core and talent. Core is best defined as the basic information and processes about employees in an organization. It comprises the basic stuff, personal information, payroll, tax, compliance, regulatory, benefits, etc. Essentially all the core functions that are used to maintain the employee and keep the lights on as of today. The term talent became more prevalent in the mid-2000s to represent the planning for an employee's future. So if core manages for today, talent manages for tomorrow. I think we can all agree that SAP has consistently been a leader in the processing of core human resources. As talent became more of a consideration, SAP adapted to the changing needs of the market by offering new items in addition to the core functionality for talent-based things, if you remember e-recruitment or e-learning or comp. At that time, SAP was touting integration via all-one solution, but unlike the dominance they experienced for the payroll solution, they were kind of falling behind on the talent solutions as customers preferred to migrate to best-of-breed vendors for talent, including companies like SuccessFactors and Taleo and Makisa, etc. Another shift in the marketplace occurred with the advent of cloud technology. Thanks to the internet, we're no longer required to be tethered to a specific PC or client-server framework to access our important data. The SAP HCM platform designed on this client-server framework needed to evolve. SAP made the wise decision to acquire SuccessFactors, a leader in the cloud space, and other companies like it, to bring together the two technologies for today and the future. So although those of us in the SAP HCM world saw very little activity or excitement for a good 10 years here, we're now seeing lots of change, and for the first time, we need to get used to a whole new set of vocabularies to keep pace with our HR technology. So let's take a moment and see what areas our attendees on the call are from. I'm going to ask y'all a question. Okay, I'm curious to know the background of the folks on the call. You might be on the functional side, the IT side, or the executive side. Please take a moment and select your answer. My path to where I'm at now was kind of unique. I started on the IT side as an ABAP programmer and then switched to the functional side, and now I like to pretend I'm on the exec side. So let's see where you all are at. That's interesting. We've got about the majority here, almost 60% on the IT side, followed by the functional side with a smaller group in payroll. Very interesting. Okay, so for all of us, whether we're functional or technical, the acquisition of SuccessFactors and the announcement that mainstream support for on-premise SAP HCM would be guaranteed through the year 2025 has sent a bit of a shockwave through our little HR community. Many feared it was the end of SAP HR as we knew it. The truth is, it's not the end. It really is just the beginning of something new and better, and a platform that can transform HR into the really, truly strategic partner in the organization that it needs to be, while empowering the HR professionals who work with that technology to be self-reliant and leverage best practice technologies to offer a better overall HR experience for the employees and a better ROI for the employers. Now that you're armed with some of the SAP backstory, let's talk about the acquisition of SuccessFactors. So with the acquisition of SuccessFactors and the decision to move to a cloud-based platform, SAP announced in 2012 that mainstream support for on-premise HR was guaranteed through calendar year-end 2025. Now, there's been quite a bit of speculation about this date. Let's start with the basics. The date of 2025 is not the end of support or the end of life for SAP HCM on-premise. It's simply the current date by which mainstream support is currently guaranteed. It's worth noting that this date has been adjusted twice. So when it was first announced, it was 2015, and then it was 2020, and then in 2014, it was changed to 2025. SAP also intends to offer options for extensions beyond this date. In my opinion, what is truly driving the guaranteed mainstream support date is how fast customers move on their journey from SAP to SuccessFactors. In a few slides, you will get an idea of what that progression has been like so far. So let's talk about the journey by starting with the basics. Here are the simplest definitions for on-premise and cloud. On-premise is any technology that's locally installed on hardware that resides in your physical location. And cloud technology doesn't require any type of local installation, and it's accessible via any PC that has access to the internet. Again, the direction for technology as a whole is to remove your reliance on your specific PC and rather make information available to you via the internet from any PC or device. So let's start with the SAP numbers. The numbers that I share here are part of SAP's December 2016 Q4 update as the number of licensed SAP HCM customers. It's reported that there are 16,000 SAP HCM licenses sold and 10,000 SAP Payroll licenses sold. In my opinion, it's fair to say these numbers are a little bit inflated, as they probably represent things like customers who are licensed for SAP HCM who never actually use it and things like that. Many of my colleagues and friends in the SAP HCM space actually speculate the numbers are probably a little bit closer to 14,000 SAP HCM customers and about 8,000 payroll customers. Whether it's 16,000, 14,000, 10,000, SAP's challenge remains successfully migrating these customers from their beloved SAP HCM systems to a new technology platform in the cloud. I remember being at the annual SAP Insider HR 2015 conference, where the president of SAP SuccessFactors, Mike Ettling, he took the stage for the keynote to talk about the transformation and the journey. It was his first time speaking to the larger audience of both SAP and SuccessFactors. And he started by taking a poll of the audience, asking for a show of hands who there had SAP on-premise. And almost every hand in the room went up, with his response being something like, oh, the majority of the room. And then he asked how many purchased at least one SuccessFactors module, and less than 10% of the room held up their hands. And you could see his response was very surprised, and he said something like, now that's a very interesting response. To me, that's an example of how slow the adoption to SuccessFactors has been. SAP is the first to admit it's been slower than they anticipated. What I want to do is talk about the journey. One of the biggest hurdles for companies making the switch is that it's not a like-for-like exercise, where the system you had in SAP will be the same one that you have in SuccessFactors. SAP and SuccessFactors technologies are based on different overall methodologies. Let's start there. So, anyone joining this webinar knows that a popular term in the SAP world is customize. You can modify your SAP system to do essentially anything you want it to do. Customers add their own screens, their own tables, their own fields, workflows, user exits, you name it. Essentially, customers modified SAP to adapt to their specific business processes. Now, many, including that popular lean methodology, will state from a best practice perspective you should try and avoid customizations, as they'll only lead to an increase in cost and complexity to maintain in the future. Although it's fair to say on the dozens of SAP HCM systems I've worked on, I've yet to see anyone who hasn't used it without at least a little customization. Now, there's a direct contrast to that is the SuccessFactors methodology. It encourages customers to leverage the best-of-breed design while making customer-specific business configuration decisions that reflect your unique organization's needs. I once heard somebody explain it this way. With SAP, you go to Home Depot with your blueprint, and you buy the lumber and a hammer and nails, and you start your build. With SuccessFactors, you sit down with your designer, and your house's structure is already built, and you simply make the decisions. You pick your flooring and your appliances and your countertops and your curtains. I thought that was an interesting way of describing it. Mike Ettling did a really good job of explaining it at the keynote I mentioned earlier. I put the link here on the bottom of the screen, and again, you're going to get a copy of this presentation after it's over. You can listen to him describe it even better than I am. Ultimately, SAP HCM customers have to wrap their heads around that it's not a business as usual swap of technologies or a like-for-like exercise, but rather the movement from SAP to SuccessFactors. It really should be seen more like a transformation process. So here's just a quick comparison. Why is it so different? For starters, the most obvious difference is that the software is not locally installed. For that point, you really don't need the IT department to visit your desk anymore to install the software. The software resides on the internet, and you simply connect directly to it from wherever you may be. Part of the cloud or SaaS, software as a service model, is that you no longer have the reliance on IT to do your job. A great example is around reporting, which is one of my favorite areas of HCM and a topic I'm talking about next week at Sapphire. One of the biggest problems with SAP HCM is that if you need a report, you usually have to get somebody in IT to help you. There's a whole bunch of reasons for this. The payroll data is not easily available. It's buried in those clusters. You can get some master data with the ad hoc query, but you essentially have to take data from a whole bunch of different places, dump it, and marry it back up again in Microsoft Excel. This often leaves the reporting available only to those with the technical skills to do all that. This type of reliance on IT slows down your progress, creates a dependency, and leaves you less in control of your data. In the SuccessFactors world, that data is available to you. No more requests to IT for a report, for example. You'll have the solutions to access the data yourself, and even better, the benefit of leveraging the best practice methodologies for how to analyze and action that data. So this slide really just represents only some of the benefits of moving to a SaaS model. Generally speaking, movement to a software as a service provider is often more cost-effective from a total cost of ownership perspective and really frees up the organization to innovate faster. Now, even though I said it's not a like-for-like exercise, there are items where we can see where the data reside in an SAP and where it will reside in the future SuccessFactors landscape. This list should look familiar to you as the list of technologies or modules offered in traditional on-premise SAP. Each of these is considered on-premise, which is, again, any technology that's locally installed in your physical location. All right, now let's take a look at the SuccessFactors modules. These are considered cloud or hosted cloud-based. Like SAP, the modules in SuccessFactors are broken down into core and talent. What's also a change in SuccessFactors, they also offer modules for reporting and analysis. So in the SAP world, we had reporting tools and utilities that you could use, like the SAP query and the ad hoc query. In SuccessFactors, the reporting and analysis functionality are actually modules that require implementation, which gives you greater reporting and analytic capabilities. On this slide, you'll notice I've differentiated between cloud and hosted cloud. So let's talk about that for a minute. SAP SuccessFactors options for payroll are what is known as hosted cloud options. The best way to explain this that I usually do is I ask customers, do you love your SAP payroll? Good, because SuccessFactors does not currently offer a new payroll solution. Rather, they leverage the world-class multinational SAP payroll in a hosted cloud environment by SuccessFactors. Essentially what they've done is integrate the SAP payroll into SuccessFactors via two different options. One's called Employee Central Payroll, and the other one's called Managed Payroll. And we're going to discuss those options in just a moment. Although it's not a like-for-like exercise, here's how the data relates between SAP and SuccessFactors. In this example, I've included only the core, talent, and payroll modules. So let's start with the easy step. You'll recognize that SAP PM, OM, Employee Self-Service, and Manager Self-Service are all now managed through SuccessFactors Employee Central. You'll also notice that there are modules in SuccessFactors for each of the SAP legacy on-premise talent offerings: performance management, recruitment, learning. You'll see that payroll is now available via those two offerings in the hosted cloud. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Next, you might notice what does not have a direct mapping, which is benefits and time. At the moment, SuccessFactors does not offer solutions for these areas. What they do offer is something called integration. So SuccessFactors offers integration to certain third-party vendors to accomplish the functionality for time and benefits. This graphic provides a sample of the type of vendors that you can work with to satisfy those functional areas. I've also hidden a little link there at the bottom right where you can go to learn more. I also want to mention that SAP SuccessFactors has been developing a solution called Global Benefits which has been on their roadmap since 2013, but I don't believe it's yet hit the marketplace. So on to everyone's favorite part, payroll. So as I mentioned, SuccessFactors does not offer a new payroll solution. Rather, they leverage SAP's payroll in what's known as a hosted cloud environment. The challenge there is that SAP's payroll design is pretty much in direct contrast to the SuccessFactors methodology of best practice. Of all the areas in SAP HR, the payroll is an area that is often the most customized. And as I mentioned before, SuccessFactors methodology is really against customization. SAP SuccessFactors has appreciated this nuance, and they offer two models accordingly. So if you want to simplify, streamline, and re-implement a simpler version of your SAP payroll, you can do so in the model called SuccessFactors Employee Central Payroll. For those customers who are wedded to their existing SAP payroll and all of its customizations, warts and all, have the option of going with SAP SuccessFactors Managed Payroll. That's a new offering that was added by SAP mid-year 2016 that allows customers to keep their SAP payroll as long as they allow one of at least two hand-picked vendors to host it on their server. This new offering of managed payroll continues on the theme that SAP adapts based on its customers' needs. Customers really seem reluctant to walk away from their huge SAP on-premise payroll investment, and more importantly, they wanted to keep their payroll as is. So SAP went out and found the two most experienced payroll vendors in the business, one of which is EPI-USE Labs, to host the payroll for them in a hosted cloud environment. So here's what you need to know about migrating your payroll. Here are the two options. So the first one is Employee Central Payroll. So this is SuccessFactors. For this option, the payroll is your SAP payroll is re-implemented in a simplified form and hosted on SuccessFactors server. If you want to do this, there are 5 things you have to do. You have to choose from 2 options for deployment. You have to buy a SuccessFactors Employee Central license. You have to buy a SuccessFactors Employee Central Payroll license. You have to re-implement and simplify, removing the customizations in your existing SAP payroll. And because of that diagram I showed you before, where there is no option for time or benefits, you would need to build integrations as needed to any partners for those modules that are not available. So that's option 1, SuccessFactors Employee Central Payroll. Second option is called SAP SuccessFactors Managed Payroll. For this option, the SAP payroll is kept as is, but its hosting is moved to a partner server. This option requires you to do 3 things. Purchase a SuccessFactors Employee Central license, select a partner from the list of 2, again, EPI-USE is one of them, and essentially lift and shift the payroll. As you can imagine, SAP's approximate 8,000 payroll customers were excited to hear about this offering as it allows them to keep their payroll unchanged, continue to run it as they do now while taking a step toward the cloud by putting in Employee Central. For this model, customers can either lift and shift or carve out the payroll. The terminology of lift and shift and carve out really just pertains to what other SAP modules you have. So for example, if your SAP HCM is on a standalone system, you can simply lift it and shift it from your location to your partner's hosting location. If your SAP is embedded with other modules on the same box, like finance and supply chain, you would use the carve-out method, which would essentially carve it out of the old system and put it onto a new box hosted by the partner. I'm pretty keen on the managed payroll offering first, followed by the deployment of Employee Central, and then eventually onto Payroll Control Center. So the magic question is, how many customers have migrated from on-premise to the cloud? So we started by looking at counts at SAP. Now let's look at counts for SuccessFactors. As of the December 2016 SAP SuccessFactors Q4 update, there were a total of 6,000 SuccessFactors licenses sold. This was a pretty big jump compared to the previous published number, which was 4,900, of which 1,300 were Employee Central. This surge is accredited to the counting of multi-posting customers and including native solutions. Anyway, the estimate between those using a core solution versus a talent solution was reported at 1,350 using Employee Central and 4,650 using the talent module. From an adoption perspective, that 1,350 on SuccessFactors Employee Central was up 100% versus Q2 2016 and up 60% versus Q3 2015. At that time, SAP SuccessFactors reported that approximately 10% of their SuccessFactors customers converted from SAP, either a core or a talent module. Let's be generous and estimate that number at 600 customers who purchased a SuccessFactors module. Let's estimate that 600 customers who purchased the SuccessFactors module were making the transition from SAP to SuccessFactors. So I just shared with you the numbers at year-end 2016. What I've got for you on this slide is estimates from the March 2017 update. So in this scenario, the overall number of Employee Central licenses has gone up from 1,350 to 1,580. And in this case, I stayed with the assumption that the conversion rate stayed at 10%. So if SuccessFactors has 6,325 licensed customers and approximately 10%, or 633 of them, have converted from SAP to SuccessFactors, and we know that SAP has 16,000 customers, where are the approximate 15,000 or more remaining SAP customers, and what are they up to? So, well, like you, many on this call, I expect they're on their journey. So when we talk about the journey, we talk about different landscape models. And these are the landscape models in which all SAP HCM customers fall. Take a good look at these because in a moment I'm going to be asking which one you are. They're referred to as landscape or deployment options. I plugged these 5 into the table here, starting with the on-premise model, which is how it's always been, having core SAP modules, HR, payroll, benefits, and SAP on-premise. In my table, I've got a column for SAP and another for SuccessFactors that shows which modules fall in each. Keeping in mind, I use the 3 broad categories, core, talent, and payroll. So the first one, on-premise, is easy to read. It's all on SAP. The next landscape model is called core hybrid. That's where customers continue to use SAP ERP on-premise payroll and/or time and move their core HR to SuccessFactors Employee Central. This would include any customers who elect to keep their payroll as part of the SAP SuccessFactors managed payroll offering. Next is the talent hybrid model, where customers use at least one module from SAP and at least one talent module from SuccessFactors, something like learning or recruitment. The definition for full cloud is customers using SuccessFactors Employee Central and any of the talent modules, recruitment, performance, learning, succession planning in the cloud. The very last model is called side by side, and that's for customers who are currently keeping core SAP modules on SAP on-premise while also using Employee Central for some core HR needs. This is a pretty desirable option for companies who keep the larger organization on standard traditional or on-premise SAP and move their smaller or new divisions to SuccessFactors. Both talent and Employee Central payroll are optional. So let's take a moment and see where everyone on the call is at in their journey. Are you still on-premise? Do you have a little bit of SAP and a little bit of SuccessFactors? Take a moment and insert your responses. While it's tabulating, I'll note that I did see that there are some SAP employees or SuccessFactors or consultants on the call. Feel free to select the option which represents what you're seeing most in your experience. So let's take a look at the results. Here we go. Look at that. The majority, again, is on-premise, almost 60%, very few in the full cloud. And the next most popular one is talent hybrid. This is consistent with many of the scenarios that I've seen over the past 2 years. Okay. Now let's just do a little bit of a deeper dive. Which modules have you started? Let me give you one more poll question. So what I've thrown up there on the screen now is now that you've shared where you're at, for those of you who have started SuccessFactors, which modules have you started? I lumped them into a couple of categories. We've got Employee Central Payroll, Performance and Goals, and Recruitment or Learning, and I threw in a category there for Other. Feel free to select as many boxes as necessary to say which modules you've started, and let's take a look at the results. Okay, the majority seems to be either recruitment or learning, closely followed by performance and goals, with a small number on Employee Central and an even smaller number on Employee Central Payroll. Interesting stuff. Okay. Bear with me, trying to share my screen. Sorry, got stuck. Give me a sec. Sarah, are you seeing my PowerPoint screen come up?
Not yet, but I can, if you want to keep talking, I can grab your PowerPoint, and if it's not working on your end, I'll put it on mine.
I think I got it back. You see it now?
Oh, here we go. Yep, got it.
That's what I get for toggling. Okay. So now that I've seen where everybody is at, let's talk about how SAP has adapted to all this. So since SAP acquired SuccessFactors, they've provided us with a whole bunch of options as we make the journey from on-premise SAP to the cloud. SAP continues to adapt to the marketplace, which drives these models. So what's interesting is, in the 4 years since the acquisition of SuccessFactors, the number of landscape options for the customers has grown. So it's probably a little bit hard to see here, especially on my screen, but what I'm trying to show is the number of landscape models as offered by SAP in their annual update each year for the past 4 years. In each, they depict the model offerings. So if we start at the top left, in 2013, they said customers had 2 options. They could either be on-premise or cloud. A year later, in 2014, a new model called Talent Hybrid was added to accommodate the slow movement while showing that there was some penetration into SuccessFactors, at least with the talent modules. A year later, 2015, a new model was created called Side by Side to account for people who refused to move off of SAP Payroll for the primary employees, but agreed to use Employee Central Payroll for smaller divisions. And as I mentioned before, this past June, the newest model was introduced to the market called Core Hybrid. This allows customers who are staying on SAP on-premise payroll and/or time, but moving core HR to SuccessFactors Employee Central. The market's resistance to adapt to this change and their slow speed to move to the cloud has really made the number of new landscape models increase every year. So these landscape changes and the slow adoption reiterate what experts already know. This is a big change, and part of it is SAP users are having trouble adapting to the mindset shift from customizing the system to be just the way they want it to be, as they do now with SAP on-premise, to adopting best practice design and processes and leaving customizations behind as they move to a more standardized cloud. These continually changing landscapes leave many in the industry to wonder if this will have any impact on the planned mainstream support end date of 2025. I do not have any official knowledge on that, although I join my colleagues in speculating that something's going to have to give. And I do that because if you use basic math and the numbers provided by SAP, I did a little informal estimation. So if SuccessFactors sold 1,580 Employee Central licenses, and 10% of those were conversions from SAP, that's 158 customers who moved from SAP to SuccessFactors. It's been 4 years since the acquisition of SuccessFactors, and 158 customers have migrated. Let's approximate that at, let's say they did it at 40 customers a year. If we need to convert the outstanding 15,842 customers by the year 2025, we would need to convert on average 1,980 a year, or 165 a month for the next 8 years. This would require something like 50 times as many conversions than what we've seen previously. Let's play it safe and say that there's really only 10,000 SAP HCM customers instead of that 16,000. Let's use that same 10% conversion rate, generally speaking, which is 1,000 customers who move from SAP to SuccessFactors. That still leaves 9,000 customers who still need to convert. That would take 1,238 customers converting each year, or approximately 103 a month for the next 8 years. I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know what's coming next, but I can say that I'm confident that SAP SuccessFactors will continue to adapt and continue to offer customers the best solutions for HCM and payroll to meet our business needs. Regardless of the journey, I hope that this webinar has been helpful to you. Next week, I'm going to be speaking at the annual SAP ASA conference in Orlando. I'm curious how many of you are Here we go. Let me know if I will be seeing you in Orlando. If you are going, please come and say hello. You could visit me at the EPI-USE Labs booth or attend my session on HR payroll reporting options in SAP and SuccessFactors on Wednesday at 3:30. And let's see. Only a small amount are attending. So for those of you who aren't attending, please connect on LinkedIn and stay connected with us to stay in the know on what's going on. I'm now going to turn it over to Sarah, who's going to see if we've got any questions. Sarah?
All right. Thanks, Danielle. Great information. Thanks for presenting for us. So let me just see what we have so far. Okay, we have been getting some questions, so thank you all for interacting with us. So let's see, the first question was, if you select the managed payroll option, who actually runs the payroll, the customer or the managed payroll partner?
That's a good question. The term managed payroll doesn't really do an elegant job of describing what it does or who does what specifically. Mike Ettling had a good way to describe it. He said something like, I think the name managed payroll is creating confusion, as this is not a managed payroll in the sense of what a traditional payroll bureau provides. This offering is really more like the concept where the service provider, in this case SAP, is providing a payroll software solution, which includes infrastructure and application management, but the client is the one who's still operating and managing their payroll every day, every pay period.
Okay, great. Okay, another question here. Can I implement Payroll Control Center without moving to anything SuccessFactors?
Yeah, the Payroll Control Center is available to customers who have SAP on-premise payroll or the SuccessFactors managed payroll option. Leveraging it really does make the payroll process and the payroll administration more efficient. It does things like providing tools to validate the data throughout the various stages in the payroll run. Although I hear that the initial implementation is a little bit of a struggle, I've heard only good things about it once it's in place. So yes, you do not have to move to anything SuccessFactors to move to Payroll Control Center.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question. Is SAP Finance integrated with SuccessFactors Employee Central and Employee Central Payroll?
Another good question. In Employee Central, the packaged integration with Finance only supports the replication of cost centers. So Employee Central Payroll integration with Finance has a lot more stuff. It includes profit centers, cost centers, vendors, company codes, banking information. If integration is something that's important in your organization, make sure you work with a trusted partner who could properly assist you in deploying it.
Okay, great. Next one, how easy or hard is it to learn SuccessFactors?
Actually, it's not that hard compared to SAP anyway. I remember in the old SAP days, you had these siloed classes like personal administration or time evaluation, and you were shipped off to a training center for a week, and regardless of how much you actually learned in the class, you would come home with a certificate. With SuccessFactors, they really know the way to train, and the learning solution is to do it at your own pace, and it's a lot easier to do so because it's driven off the PC and the internet. It actually uses SuccessFactors learning application. So the program's designed a lot like the best practice principles for training classes. It has things like little videos and quizzes and exams to make sure that you're catching on, and you also have to pass a test to get your completion certificate. Also, if you take a certification course, you have to stay in the loop on anything new that comes out within the quarter and take a quarterly exam to keep that certification current. I do want to mention they also have a bunch of free training to get you started. SAP is eager for customers to transition to SuccessFactors, and they really make it easy for you to do so with some free training. If you didn't know about it, feel free to check out, I think it's opensap.com to learn more about free training.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question is, where can I learn more about SuccessFactors global benefits?
That's a hard one. It's been on the roadmap for a long time, but it is difficult to find information about it. I try and follow somebody named Deepika Reddy. She's got a video on YouTube. She's from SAP, and she put out a video, it was probably about a year ago, called SuccessFactors Employee Central with Global Benefits. And you can do like I do and just create up a Google alert so that if anything new comes out about global benefits for SuccessFactors, you could stay in the know.
Okay, and another one is SAP going to build or launch an entirely new payroll to replace the SAP Payroll and the options available now like ECP and SuccessFactors Managed Payroll?
That's a question that's been around for a few years now. People started referring to it as SuccessFactors Next Generation Payroll. It would be something essentially built for the cloud without using any of the SAP payroll technology. From my understanding, both SAP and SuccessFactors have yet to announce any new offerings as of May 2017 anyway. I continue to keep an eye out, although I would envision that if something was in the works, it would probably take a significant amount of time to be market ready. And with all things technology related, I wouldn't want to be the first one to volunteer to try something new. So we all know that SAP Payroll is currently the best there is, and until such time as there is something that compares to it from a global capability perspective, the best bet in my opinion is to stay with SAP Payroll, either via the SuccessFactors Employee Central Payroll or the Managed Payroll option. I do want to point you also, there's an article out there on my LinkedIn page that kind of guides you through. It says, how do I know which option is best for me? If you wanted to find it, it's on LinkedIn. It's an article called SAP SuccessFactors Managed Payroll. Is it a good fit for my organization? You can learn some more there.
Okay. So I think that's all the time we're going to have today for questions. And we really hope you all enjoyed today's session. Thank you, Danielle. And I just want to ask Danielle, is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up here?
No, thank you everybody for taking the time to join us, and I hope you stay and interact with us online via our hashtag. And thanks again.
Yep, and just a reminder, we will be posting this webinar recording on the website, and we'll be sending it to each of you as well. So thanks again. Have a great day, everyone.